The Zephyrian Empire ruled the galaxy like gods of war. For 10,000 years, no enemy had ever made them bleed. No species had ever made them retreat. Their crystalline bodies stood 12 feet tall, covered in natural armor that could stop laser fire. They could shoot energy beams from their hands that melted steel. When they walked, the ground shook beneath their feet. War Prime Calivos stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking out at the stars. 847 star systems bowed to his empire. 847 victories, without a single defeat. Every species they met either surrendered immediately or died within days. It was the natural order of things. The strong ruled the weak. Another probe ship detected in Sector 7, reported Fleet Commander Nexus Krell. Unknown design, small craft, appears to be exploring. Voss turned his massive crystalline head. His eyes glowed with inner fire. Send them the standard message. Submit or be destroyed. The probe ship belonged to humanity. Captain Jake Morrison sat in the pilot's chair of the exploration vessel New Horizon, staring at the massive alien ship that had appeared on his screens. It was beautiful in a terrifying way, all crystal spires and gleaming metal, easily 50 times larger than a ship. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission," said Communications Officer Betty Adams. Her voice was steady, but Jake could see her hands shaking slightly. "Put it through." The holographic display showed a towering alien figure. Its voice was like rocks grinding together. "I am War Prime Calivos of the Zephyrian Empire. You will surrender your vessel and submit to Imperial authority. Resistance will result in immediate destruction." Jake looked around his bridge. His crew of 12 humans looked back at him. They were so small compared to this alien giant. So fragile. No natural armor, no energy weapons, just soft skin and clever minds. "With respect, War Prime Voss," Jake said, "we represent the human species. We're explorers, not conquerors. We come in peace." Voss laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Peace is what the conquered call their defeat. You have one standard time unit to surrender. Jake muted the transmission and turned to his crew. "Options." "We could run," said Navigation Officer Carl Murphy. "Jump back to human space, warn Earth." "They'd follow us," said Science Officer Linda Brooks. "That ship is faster than ours." Jake thought about his wife Nancy back on Earth, about his daughter Emma, only 5 years old, about the billions of humans who had no idea what was coming for them. "Open the channel," he said. Voss appeared again, his crystalline features showing amusement. "Your decision, human." "We respectfully decline your offer," Jake said. "Humans don't surrender." For a moment, Voss said nothing. In 10,000 years of conquest, no species had ever refused surrender when faced with certain death. They begged. They bargained. They wept. They never simply said no. "Curious," Voss said finally. "You are small, weak. Your ship has no significant weapons. Yet you refuse to submit. Are you defective?" "Maybe we are," Jake said. "But that's your problem to figure out." Voss's amusement faded. "Very well. You'll provide entertainment before you die. Fleet Commander Krell, prepare the death ray. Full power." "Wait," Jake said quickly. "Before you kill us, don't you want to know what you're up against? We could tell you about humanity, about Earth. Knowledge is valuable, isn't it?" Voss paused. Information about new species was always useful for conquest. "Speak quickly." "Humans evolved on a death world," Jake said. "Everything on our planet tried to kill us. Predators, diseases, weather, other humans. We survived by being smarter, faster to adapt, and more stubborn than everything else. We don't give up, ever." "Interesting," Voss said, "but irrelevant. No species survives contact with the Zephyrian Empire." "Maybe not," Jake agreed, "but we'll make you work for it." Voss raised his hand. Energy began to gather around his fingers. The New Horizon would be destroyed in seconds. Jake closed his eyes and thought of Emma. The energy blast never came. "War Prime," Krell interrupted. "Long-range sensors detect a massive fleet approaching the system. Unknown configuration." Voss lowered his hand. Reinforcements to the human? Unknown, sir. The fleet is large. On Jake's screen, new contacts appeared. Hundreds of them. Human ships coming out of hyperspace in perfect formation. Admiral Lisa Carter's voice filled the bridge. Captain Morrison, this is Admiral Carter aboard the Defiant. Please report your status. Jake keyed his microphone with shaking hands. Admiral, I've made contact with the Zephyrian Empire. They've demanded human surrender. I see. And your response? I told them humans don't surrender, ma'am. Carter's laugh carried across the void. Outstanding, Captain. War Prime Voss. I presume you can hear this transmission? Voss's image flickered with surprise. How do you know my name, human? We've been watching you for months, Carter replied. Learning about you, studying your tactics, preparing. Impossible. No species has ever prepared for us. They have no time. War Prime Voss, Carter said. Let me introduce you to humanity's greatest weapon. We think ahead. The human fleet spread out in a formation Voss had never seen before. Not the mass charge of most species, or the defensive clusters of others. The human ships move like a living thing, each vessel perfectly coordinated with the others. You have thousands of ships, Voss admitted, but they are small, weak. We have conquered species with larger fleets. Size isn't everything, Carter replied. War Prime Voss, humanity offers you one chance to withdraw from human space. Leave peacefully, and no blood will be spilled today. Voss's crystalline features twisted with rage. You dare threaten the Zephyrian Empire? We are apex predators. We are death incarnate. You were apex predators, Carter corrected, until you met humans. War Prime Voss, you made one critical error. You assumed that because we look weak, we are weak. You assume that because we're small, we're helpless. You assume that because we don't have natural weapons, we can't fight. Your assumptions are correct. Human, you cannot defeat us. Carter's voice grew cold. War Prime Voss, humans didn't evolve to be the biggest or the strongest. We evolved to kill things that were bigger and stronger than us. We are very, very good at it. Voss looked at his tactical display. The human fleet was moving into attack position, but not like any formation he'd ever seen. They moved like hunters, like predators. For the first time in 10,000 years, War Prime Calavos felt something he didn't recognize. A cold feeling in his crystalline chest. A whisper in his mind that said maybe, just maybe, he had made a terrible mistake. The feeling was fear. And across the void, Admiral Lisa Carter smiled as she gave the order that would change the galaxy forever. All ships, commence Operation Thunderbolt. Show them what humans do to bullies. The Zephyrian invasion fleet arrived at New Texas Colony like a storm of crystal and fire. 300 massive warships dropped out of hyperspace, their hulls gleaming with deadly beauty. War Prime Voss had sent his best general, Fleet Commander Nexus Krell, to crush this human outpost and send a message to Earth. Colonial Defense Commander Ben Phillips watched the enemy fleet through his rifle scope from a hidden bunker. The Zephyrian ships were magnificent and terrifying. Each one could destroy his entire colony with a single shot. He keyed his radio. All units, this is Phillips. Execute Plan Shadow. I repeat, execute Plan Shadow. Across New Texas Colony, humans began to vanish. Fleet Commander Krell stood on his command bridge, studying the human settlement below. It was pathetic by Zephyrian standards. Small buildings, weak defenses, perhaps 50,000 inhabitants. The battle would be over in minutes. Begin planetary bombardment, Krell ordered. Target all population centers. The energy beams lanced down from orbit, striking the colonial capital. Buildings exploded in brilliant flashes. When the light faded, the city was gone. Krell nodded with satisfaction. Another easy victory for the Empire. Sir, reported his sensor officer. We're detecting no casualties. Krell's crystalline features twisted in confusion. Impossible. We just destroyed their capital. The buildings were empty, sir. No life signs detected. Find them, Krell snarled. Humans do not simply disappear. Captain Amy Rodriguez crouched in the pilot seat of her fighter, hidden in a cave system 30 miles from the colony. Around her, 49 other human pilots waited in silence. They had been hiding here for weeks, preparing for this moment. "Phoenix Squadron, this is Phoenix Leader," she whispered into her radio. "Enemy fleet is in position, beginning harassment protocol." The human fighters launched from hidden caves all across the planet. They were small, fast, and completely unexpected. The Zephyrians had never faced an enemy that hid before battle. Amy's fighter screamed through the atmosphere, targeting the Zephyrian supply ships at the edge of the fleet. Her missiles struck home, crippling the vessel's cargo holds. Before the enemy could respond, she was gone, diving back into the planet's atmosphere. "What was that?" Krell demanded as alarms blared across his ship. "Unknown craft, sir. Very small, very fast. It hit supply ship 7 and disappeared. Deploy fighters. Hunt them down." But the Zephyrian fighters found nothing. The humans had vanished back into their caves and tunnels like ghosts. For the first time in Zephyrian military history, they were fighting an enemy they could not see. On the planet's surface, Major Chris Walker led his ground forces through the abandoned colony. They had turned every building into a trap, every street into a killing zone. The industrial complex had become a maze of ambush points and hidden weapons. The Zephyrian landing force came down like hammers of crystal and metal. 10,000 elite soldiers, each one a walking weapon. They expected to find cowering humans begging for mercy. Instead, they found empty buildings and silence. "Where are they?" growled General Morthkes, Krell's ground commander. His crystalline armor gleamed in the alien sun as he stomped through the empty streets. The answer came in the form of an explosion that took out his entire forward squad. Then another, and another. The humans were everywhere and nowhere, striking from shadows and disappearing before a turn fire could be coordinated. Walker watched through his scope as the Zephyrian formation fell apart. These giants were used overwhelming force to enemies that stood and fought. They had no idea how to deal with an enemy that refused to fight fair. Team Alpha, hit their left flank. Walker whispered into his radio. Team Beta, mines are set on the north approach. Team Gamma, take out their communications array. The Zephyrians found themselves fighting a war unlike anything in their history. Their enemies were invisible, striking from every direction. Every street corner could hide death. Every building could explode. Every step forward cost them soldiers. In orbit, Fleet Commander Krell watched his casualty reports climb. In the first week, he lost more soldiers than in his last 20 conquests combined. The humans were using tactics that violated every principle of civilized warfare. They poisoned water supplies, sabotaged equipment, turned the very environment against the invaders. "Sir," reported his communications officer, "General Kess is requesting orbital bombardment of his own position. The humans have surrounded his forces in the industrial complex." Krell's inner fire dimmed. A Zephyrian general had never requested bombardment of his own troops. It was unthinkable. Denied. Continue ground operations. But the ground operations were becoming a nightmare. The humans had turned warfare into a deadly game of hide and seek. They used the planet's weather against the Zephyrians, triggering storms and floods at the worst possible moments. They hacked Zephyrian communication systems, sending false orders that led entire units into ambushes. Captain Danny Foster specialized in making the impossible possible. His cargo ship, disguised as a civilian freighter, had evacuated 20,000 colonists right under the Zephyrian fleet sensors. Now he was back for more. "Phoenix Squadron, this is Freight Dog," he called on the radio. "Package delivery in progress. Need cover for extraction." Amy Rodriguez and her fighters swept down from the clouds, engaging the Zephyrian interceptors, while Foster's ship landed in the ruins of the spaceport. 500 more humans ran aboard his ship. Women, children, elderly colonists who couldn't fight. In minutes, they were gone, jumping to hyperspace before the enemy could respond. The Zephyrians realized they were fighting an enemy that valued civilian lives above military victory. It was a concept they could not understand. In Zephyrian culture, the weak died so the strong could survive. But humans fought harder to protect their weak than to destroy their enemies. Colonel Sandra Price watched the battle from Earth through quantum communication links. Her tactical analysis unit studied every Zephyrian move, every weapon, every formation. What they learned, they shared with every human force in the galaxy. Pattern recognition confirmed Zephyrian weakness to sonic attacks, she reported to Admiral Carter. Recommend immediate deployment of sonic weapons to all frontline units. Within hours, human forces across New Texas were using modified mining equipment as weapons. The sound waves that could break apart rock could also shatter Zephyrian crystal armor. The hunters were becoming the hunted. War Prime Voss received the reports from New Texas with growing anger and confusion. 6 months. The conquest of a minor human colony was taking 6 months. His forces had conquered entire star systems faster than this. Status report. He demanded from Fleet Commander Krell. Sir, we control approximately 60% of the planet's surface, Krell reported. Casualties stand at 47,000. 47,000? Voss roared. For one pathetic colony? The humans do not fight like any species we have encountered. They refuse direct battle. They use guerrilla tactics, asymmetric warfare, psychological operations. Our standard doctrine has no counter for their methods. Voss felt that strange, cold feeling again, the feeling he was beginning to recognize as fear. What do you recommend? Total planetary destruction, sir. Crack the world and be done with it. No, Voss said quietly. If we crack every human world, we learn nothing about them. And there are more human colonies. Many more. We must learn to defeat them. But as the weeks passed, Voss began to understand a terrible truth. The humans were not just fighting to win. They were fighting to learn. Every battle taught them something new about Zephyrian tactics. Every defeat made them stronger. Every victory showed them a new weakness to exploit. The Zephyrians, who had never needed to adapt in 10,000 years of conquest, found themselves facing an enemy that adapted every day. It was like fighting evolution itself. And in the ruins of New Texas Colony, Commander Ben Phillips smiled as he watched another Zephyrian patrol walk into his trap. The Zephyrians thought they were fighting humans. They were wrong. They were fighting humanity. And humanity had been preparing for this war since the first human picked up a rock and threw it at something bigger and stronger than himself. The apex predators were learning what it meant to be prey. The evacuation of Centauri was a masterpiece of human cooperation. Cargo ships, passenger liners, private yachts, even mining barges joined the rescue effort. When the Zephyrian Death Fleet arrived to crack the planet, they found empty cities and a single message broadcast on all frequencies. You're too late. Humanity takes care of its own. War Prime Voss watched the recording with growing frustration. The humans had evacuated an entire planet in 6 hours. It should have been impossible. Nothing moved that fast. Nothing coordinated that well. How? He asked the staff. How do they do it? Sir, replied his intelligence officer, human society appears to be based on cooperation rather than domination. They work together instinctively. Weakness, Voss declared. Cooperation is weakness. But even as he said it, Voss wondered if he was wrong. The humans were showing a level of coordination that his empire, built on fear and domination, could never match. Colonel Sandra Price and her tactical analysis unit had turned war into a science. Every Zephyrian engagement was recorded, analyzed, and dissected. Every weakness was identified and exploited. Every strength was neutralized. Pattern analysis complete, Price reported to Admiral Carter. Zephyrian forces show consistent tactical inflexibility. They use the same formations, same strategies, same responses for every situation. Recommend immediate deployment of counter-tactics manual to all human forces. Within days, every human commander in the galaxy had a playbook that told them exactly how the Zephyrians would respond to any given situation. The humans could predict their enemy's moves before the enemy made them. The war entered its second year, with the Zephyrian Empire in chaos. Their supply lines were under constant attack. Their communications were compromised. Their forces were spread thin across hundreds of systems, trying to fend everything at once. But the humans were just getting started. Major General Paul Wright commanded the liberation of the Vega system. the first direct assault on a major Zephyrian stronghold. His forces used every lesson learned from 2 years of war. "Listen up," Wright told the commanders. "The Zephyrians expect us to attack their strongest points. Instead, we hit their weakest. They expect us to mass our forces. Instead, we spread them out. They expect us to fight their kind of war. Instead, we fight ours." The Battle of Vega lasted 3 weeks. The humans used sonic weapons to crack Zephyrian armor, ghost fleets to cut supply lines, and coordinated attacks that hit 12 different targets simultaneously. When the dust settled, the Zephyrians had lost an entire fleet and their first major stronghold. War Prime Voss receiving news of Vega's fall with something approaching panic. In 2 years of war, the humans had cost him more ships, more soldiers, and more territory than he had lost in the previous 1,000 years of conquest. "Sir," reported Krell, "intelligence suggests the humans are preparing for a major offensive. Fleet concentrations detected near Sol system. Their homeworld," Voss mused. "They mean to strike at us directly. Sir, perhaps it is time to consider negotiation. The humans have proven more formidable than anticipated." Voss's crystalline features twisted with rage. "Negotiation? We are the Zephyrian Empire. We do not negotiate with inferior species." But as he said the words, Voss wondered if the humans were truly inferior. They had turned his mighty empire into a laughingstock. Species that had bowed to Zephyrian rule for millennia were beginning to rebel, inspired by human resistance. The humans had done something no enemy had ever done before. They had made the Zephyrians afraid. And fear, Voss was learning, was a terrible weakness for a species that had never known it before. In her command center on Earth, Admiral Carter studied the latest intelligence reports. The Zephyrian Empire was cracking. Their forces were demoralized. Their allies were switching sides. Their economy was collapsing under the strain of constant warfare. "Phase 3 is ready to begin," she announced to her staff. "It's time to take the war to their homeworld. It's time to show them what humans do when we stop playing defense." The galaxy held its breath. The apex predators were about to learn what it meant to be hunted by the most dangerous species in the universe. Humanity was coming for them. The 3rd year of war brought something the Zephyrian Empire had never experienced: doubt. In the crystal spires of their homeworld, generals whispered questions that would have been unthinkable before the humans arrived. Could they actually lose this war? Fleet Commander Nexus Krell stood before War Prime Boss, his crystalline features showing cracks of stress. "Sir, we have lost control of 43 star systems. Rebellion is spreading throughout the outer territories. Our casualties number over 2 million. Voss's inner fire dimmed. 2 million Zephyrians dead. In 10,000 years of conquest, they had never lost even half that number. What do the humans want?" "Unknown, sir. They refuse all communication. They simply attack, destroy, and move on. It is as if they seek our complete destruction." "Perhaps," Voss said quietly, "that is exactly what they seek." Captain Tony Blake led humanity's most daring mission yet. His fleet of modified warships, equipped with reverse-engineered Zephyrian technology, approached the enemy capital system. The ships still looked human, but they packed firepower that could match anything the Zephyrians had. "Ghost leader to all units," Blake called over the radio. "Remember, we're not here to conquer. We're here to send a message. Show them that nowhere is safe from human reach." Dr. Helen Garcia's research team had performed miracles with captured Zephyrian technology. Human energy weapons could now punch through crystal armor. Human shields could deflect Zephyrian power beams. The technological gap that had seemed insurmountable 3 years ago had been closed through human ingenuity and determination. "Captain," reported Blake's science officer, "enemy fleet detected. Size wow. Sir, there are over 3,000 ships defending the capital system." Blake smiled. "Good. That means they're scared. All units, begin Operation Thunderstrike. Let's give them something to be scared about." The Battle of Zephyr Prime began with a single human ship jumping directly into the heart of the enemy fleet. It fired once, destroying a Zephyrian dreadnought, then jumped away before a turn fire could find it. Then another ship appeared, fired, and vanished. Then another. War Prime Voss watched in horror from his command ship as human vessels appeared and disappeared throughout his fleet like deadly ghosts. His ships fired at shadows while human weapons found their marks with devastating precision. "How are they doing this?" Voss demanded. "Sir," replied his center officer, "they appear to be using micro-jump technology, very short hyperspace jumps within the system. It should be impossible." "Yet they do it," Voss snarled. "Adapt. Counter their tactics." But adaptation was not something the Zephyrian military understood. For 10,000 years, their overwhelming superiority had made tactical innovation unnecessary. They had one strategy: apply maximum force until the enemy died. Against the humans, that strategy was useless. Admiral Lisa Carter commanded the human fleet from the bridge of her flagship, the Defiant. Around her, holographic displays showed the battle unfolding exactly as her tactical team had predicted. The Zephyrians were responding to human attacks with textbook maneuvers that had worked for millennia against other enemies. Against humans, they were suicide. "All units, execute pattern Delta," Carter ordered. "Hit their command ships. Make them deaf and blind." Human fighters, too small and fast for Zephyrian targeting systems, swarmed through the enemy fleet like angry wasps. They targeted communication arrays, sensor clusters, and command bridges. Within an hour, the mighty Zephyrian fleet was fighting blind and uncoordinated. On the surface of Zephyr Prime, Major General Paul Wright led the ground assault that would have been impossible just 3 years before. His forces included not just humans, but volunteers from dozens of species inspired by humanity's resistance to Zephyrian tyranny. "Remember," Wright told his commanders, "we're not here to destroy their cities. We're here to destroy their government. Minimize civilian casualties. Show the galaxy what liberation looks like, not conquest." The assault on the Zephyrian capital was unlike anything in galactic history. Human forces, supported by alien volunteers, fought through Zephyrian defenses with coordination that seemed impossible. Every unit knew exactly where every other unit was. Every attack was perfectly timed. Every advance was mutually supporting. War Prime Voss himself led the defense of the government complex, his crystalline body glowing with inner fire as he fought human soldiers in the corridors of power. He was 12 feet tall, armored like a tank, and armed with weapons that could vaporize a human instantly. Lieutenant Colonel Michelle Scott was 6 feet tall, protected by ceramic armor, and armed with a sonic rifle. The battle should have been no contest. But Scott had studied Zephyrian combat techniques for 3 years. She knew exactly how Voss would attack, exactly how he would defend, exactly when he would be vulnerable. The sonic rifle fired. Voss's crystal armor cracked like glass. He fell to his knees, his mighty form suddenly fragile. Scott placed him in restraints designed specifically for Zephyrian physiology. "What are you?" Voss whispered. "What manner of creature fights as you do?" Scott looked down at the being who had terrorized the galaxy for 10,000 years. "We're survivors, and we've been practicing for a very long time." The fall of Zephyr Prime sent shockwaves across the galaxy. Species that lived under Zephyrian rule for millennia declared independence. The myth of Zephyrian invincibility, once their greatest weapon, crumbled like ancient stone. Captain Danny Foster and his rescue fleet worked overtime, evacuating Zephyrian civilians from war zones. The humans, despite their victory, refused to target non-combatants. It was a concept that baffled many alien species, including the Zephyrians themselves. "Why?" asked a captured Zephyrian general. "Why do you save our civilians? We are your enemies." Foster looked at the alien with something approaching pity. "Because that's what makes us human. We don't make war on children and old folks. We're better than that." Colonel Sander Price's intelligence networks, built over 3 years of war, finally revealed the full scope of the Zephyrian Empire's collapse. Rebellion was spreading to every corner of their territory. Their military was in full retreat. Their government was in chaos. "Admiral," Price reported to Carter, "we have achieved total strategic victory. The Zephyrian Empire no longer exists as a functioning entity. Recommend immediate cessation of offensive operations and beginning of occupation procedures." Carter nodded, but felt no joy in victory. Too many humans had died. Too many alien species had suffered under Zephyrian rule. The war was over, but the peace would be harder to win than any battle. In his cell aboard a human prison ship, War Prime Voss struggled to understand what had happened to his empire. The humans had not just defeated the Zephyrians. They had made victory look easy. Every advantage the Zephyrians possessed had been turned against them. Every strength had become a weakness. "You studied us," he said to his human guard. "For how long?" The guard, a young Marine named Pete Collins, considered the question. "Since the first day we knew you existed. That's what humans do. We learn about our enemies. We figure out how to beat them. Then we do it." "But how?" Voss demanded. "We are superior in every way. Stronger, tougher, more advanced." Collins smiled. "You made the same mistake every bully makes. You thought strength was about size and weapons. Real strength is about adapting, learning, working together. Humans have been doing that since we lived in caves." Voss fell silent. In all his years of conquest, he had never encountered a species that defined strength so differently from his own people. The Zephyrians had built their empire on individual superiority. The humans had built their victory on collective cooperation. The war was over. The Zephyrian Empire was finished. But as Voss sat in his cell, he began to understand that something new was beginning. The humans had not conquered the galaxy to rule it. They had conquered it to free it. And that, perhaps, was the most terrifying thing of all. The humans were not just better warriors than the Zephyrians. They were better people. And in a universe where the strong had always ruled the weak, that changed everything. The apex predators had fallen. The age of humanity had begun. And across the galaxy, billions of beings who had lived in fear for millennia looked up at the stars and dared to hope for the first time in 10,000 years. The monsters were gone. The humans had saved them all. The Zephyrian surrender came not with fanfare or ceremony, but with a simple message broadcast across the galaxy. The Zephyrian Empire ceases all military operations. We submit to human authority. War Prime Calavos, once master of 800 star systems, sat in a human detention facility trying to understand how his mighty empire had crumbled in just 3 years. The humans had not simply defeated the Zephyrians. They had made victory look inevitable. Admiral Lisa Carter walked into Voss's cell wearing a simple human military uniform. No ceremonial armor, no symbols of conquest. Just a tired woman who had fought the greatest war in galactic history. "War Prime," she said, sitting across from him at a plain metal table. "I am no longer War Prime," Voss replied, his crystalline voice hollow. "I am nothing now." "You're wrong," Carter said. "You're a person who made mistakes. Big ones, but still a person." Voss looked up, confused. "You do not execute your enemies?" "Not unless we have to. Killing you won't bring back the people who died in this war. But maybe helping you understand why you lost will prevent future wars." The Galactic Reconstruction Council met in what had once been the Zephyrian Senate building on their homeworld. Representatives from hundreds of species gathered to decide the fate of a galaxy freed from 10,000 years of tyranny. Captain Jake Morrison, the man who had made first contact with the Zephyrians, now served as humanity's chief diplomatic officer. He looked out at the assembled aliens, many of whom had been slaves just months before. "The question before us," Morrison said, "is simple. What kind of galaxy do we want to build?" The debate lasted for weeks. Some species wanted revenge against the Zephyrians. Others wanted to divide up the former empire among themselves. A few suggested that humanity should simply become the new galactic rulers. Morrison listened to all of them, then stood to address the council. "Humans didn't fight this war to become conquerors," he said. "We fought to survive. Now that we've survived, we want to help others do the same. The galaxy doesn't need new masters. It needs new friends." Dr. Rachel Mills continued her research, but now her focus had shifted from weapons to healing. Her discoveries about Zephyrian biology led to medical breakthroughs that helped injured veterans from both sides of the war. The same resonance frequencies that could shatter their armor can also heal their crystal structure, she explained to her medical team. "We can help the wounded Zephyrians recover from their injuries." It was revolutionary thinking. No species in galactic history had ever treated their defeated enemies wounded. But humans, as always, did things differently. Major General Paul Wright found himself in charge of the most unusual military force in galactic history. The new Galactic Defense Force included humans, former Zephyrian soldiers, and volunteers from dozens of other species. Teaching them to work together was like conducting an orchestra, where every musician played a different instrument. The key, Wright explained to his mixed command staff, is not to make everyone the same. It's to make everyone work together. Humans are good at adapting. Zephyrians are good at direct assault. The Andorians are excellent pilots. The Keplerians are master engineers. Together, we're stronger than any of us alone. Former Fleet Commander Nexus Krell struggled with his new role as a junior officer in the Galactic Defense Force. For 10,000 years, his people had been warriors and conquerors. Now they were being taught to be protectors. "I do not understand," Krell told his human commanding officer, Colonel Sander Price. "Why do you trust us? We were your enemies." Price smiled. "Because humans believe people can change. You were soldiers following orders. Now you're soldiers protecting civilians. Same skills, better cause." It took months, but slowly Krell began to understand. Strength was not about dominating others. It was about protecting them. The humans had not conquered the Zephyrians to destroy them, but to save everyone else from them. And now they wanted to save the Zephyrians from themselves. Captain Tony Blake commanded humanity's newest starship, the Unity, on patrol in the Outer Rim, where new threats might emerge from unexplored space. His crew was half human, half alien, including several former Zephyrian officers. Contact on long-range sensors reported as Zephyrian tactical officer, Junior Commander Vex Null. Unknown vessel, large size, heading toward the Centauri system. Blake smiled. 2 years ago, that same Zephyrian would have been trying to kill him. Now they work together to protect innocent civilians. "Red alert," Blake called. "All hands to battle stations. Let's go see what's out there." The unknown ship turned out to be a refugee vessel, carrying survivors from a dying star system. Blake's crew rescued 12,000 aliens and transported them to safety. It was exactly the kind of mission that the old Zephyrian Empire would never bother with. "Captain," asked Ensign Amy Martinez, one of Blake's human officers, "why do we do this? These aliens aren't human. We don't owe them anything." Blake looked out at the stars, thinking of all the battles fought and lives lost to reach this point. "Because," he said, "if we only protect humans, we're no better than the Zephyrians were. We protect everyone or we protect no one." War Prime Voss, now simply called Voss, worked in the human refugee camps on former Zephyrian worlds. His job was to help displaced civilians of all species find new homes. It was humble work for a former galactic emperor, but he found it oddly satisfying. "Why do you let me do this?" he asked Carter during one of her visits to the camps. "I am responsible for millions of deaths." Carter watched Voss gently helping an elderly alien family find medical care. "Because you're trying to make amends. That's more than most dictators ever do." The galaxy slowly healed from 10,000 years of Zephyrian rule. New trade routes opened between species that had been enemies for millennia. Scientific cooperation replaced military conquest. Art and culture flourished as species shared their knowledge freely. But it was not paradise. Some species could not let go of old hatreds. Pirates and criminals filled the power vacuum left by the Empire's collapse. New threats emerged from the unknown regions of space. The difference was that now, the galaxy faced these challenges together. Captain Danny Foster, now Admiral Foster, commanded the Galactic Relief Fleet. His ships carried food to hungry worlds, medicine to plague-stricken systems, and hope to places that had forgotten what it meant to be free. "This is what victory looks like," Foster told his crews. "Not conquest, not domination, but millions of people living free, because we chose to fight for them." In the end, humanity's greatest victory was not the defeat of the Zephyrian Empire. It was showing the galaxy what they had accomplished together. Humans had not saved the galaxy by being stronger or smarter or more advanced than anyone else. They had saved it by refusing to give up, by working together, by believing that everyone, Even their enemies could be better than they were. The Zephyrians had ruled through fear for 10,000 years. Humans built their new order on hope. And across the galaxy, billions of beings who had never dared to dream of freedom found themselves living in a universe where anything was possible. Voss, working late in the refugee camp, looked up at the stars and saw something he had never noticed during his years of conquest. The galaxy was beautiful, not because it was conquered, but because it was free. In a small hospital on Earth, a human child named Emma Morrison asked her father about the war that had ended before she was born. "Daddy, were the aliens really scary?" Jake Morrison, now director of Galactic Diplomatic Relations, smiled and tucked his daughter into bed. "Very scary, sweetheart. But do you know what we discovered?" "What?" "Even scary things can become friends if you treat them right." Emma yawned. "Are we friends with them now?" Morrison looked out the window at the stars, where human and alien ships patrol together, where former enemies work side by side to build something better. "Yes, Emma, we're all friends now." And across the galaxy, on 1,000 worlds under alien suns, children of dozens of species went to sleep safe in the knowledge that somewhere out there, humans were watching over them. The age of conquest was over. The age of cooperation had begun, and it would last as long as beings remembered the lesson humanity had taught the universe. Everyone deserves to be free. Everyone deserves to be safe. And everyone, no matter how different or frightened they might seem, deserves a chance to be better than they were. That was a human way, and it had made all the difference.